Great news to begin tonight's show with. Tobias Harris honored as the top player in the Eastern Conference this past week. A deserved award for him. He's been playing so well as of late. And Lauren Rosen, so too have the 76ers, owners of the best record in the entire NBA right now at 5-1 going into tonight's game.
I would say not only is Tobias Harris the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, but I think the 76ers have to be the Eastern Conference Team of the Week. It's been a really solid week for this team, led, of course, by Tobias's efforts. It's his third time that he's won this award, but this is a guy who doesn't necessarily get the most accolades in this league, so it's great to see him rewarded for such a phenomenal and historic week.
We'll dive into the details about a big three-game stretch for Tobias Harris, leading the 76ers to a 3-0 mark during that period. But this team right now, Lauren, is playing really good basketball. And Doc Rivers, a few moments ago, when asked about the award that Tobias Harris received, he says, yes, I'm very proud of him. I'm happy for him. But to me, individual accolades represent team success. And that is certainly the theme underscoring what the 76ers have been doing as of late. They won the first game of this two-game series on Saturday by the score of 127-112, and they looked awfully good at times.
They sure did. Taking the momentum that they gathered on New Year's Eve in that blowout win against Orlando, you come back home against a Charlotte team, and it could be a little bit of a trap game, but not for the 76ers, who got out to an even hotter start, arguably, than they did on New Year's Eve in Orlando, and managed to keep the Hornets at bay when they tried to get back into the game in the second half, ultimately coming away with a pretty decisive victory in the first of two consecutive games against the same team for the first time this year.
Love it. And I'm not very good at math, but I think by my very in-depth hardcore calculations, over the last two games, the 76ers have scored a total of 148 points in the first half. That is insane to me, and it just speaks to the way the Sixers have been aggressively coming out, like you said, setting the tone, and really letting Ben Simmons stir the drink and get things started.
I love the way you talk about Ben sort of stirring the drink, maybe being the conductor of the symphony. We heard him last week say that he doesn't care if he has 0 points. If the team is up by 50, it means he's doing something right. And he certainly is doing a lot of things right. He's flirted with triple doubles all season long, and it was great to see him finally get that first one against Charlotte with a pretty dominant performance. And like you said, he's been all over the place on both ends of the floor, getting teammates involved, getting to the rack himself. Ben is off to a very strong start this year.
This is a wealth-sharing offense for the 76ers. They lead the NBA in passes made per game. They've been really effective in terms of their assist percentage as well. But all five starters finished in double figures in the game on Saturday in the win over Charlotte. And then there was another double-figure score in Shake Milton. That's becoming a regular thing off the bench. But the Sixers, they've just been able to get out to such great starts. Ben Simmons, as we talked about, an integral part of it. And what I really liked about Ben's game in particular, Lauren, is as we see him go to work on the block in the third quarter, he was perfectly content setting up guys like Tobias Harris and the rest of the team. But then when the game was on the line and Charlotte cut the deficit to 10 points in the fourth quarter, Ben Simmons was there to go get his, put the ball in the rack, and help finish things off.
Being very aggressive, as you saw there, getting the and one, not afraid to draw contact, get to the line this season. And that's something that Doc Rivers has said that they're focused on is getting Ben to shoot more free throws, perhaps 10 a game. And that would be great to see here. Obviously, it was a team effort. We've said Ben Simmons on both ends of the floor there. He found Tobias. It was just great to see this offense really start to click. And keep in mind, this is the team that now has the best defense in the league, but they looked this good on offense. There's a lot of good things going on here in South Philadelphia.
And this play, I think we're about to hear set up by the Tobias Harris block, one of his three in the game. Ben Simmons sealing the deal and helping the 76ers put the Charlotte Hornets away in a big win on Saturday night, their third in a row. Simmons has been in a good place. The 76ers accordingly have been in a good place. And I think we have a soundbite from Ben Simmons after the game on Saturday talking about the chemistry, the atmosphere inside the 76ers locker room. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, I think definitely that's a huge part. But it's also everybody buying into this system. When you have everybody, holding each other accountable for defensively first, then offensively is tough. You want to come out here and do well for your teammates every possession. And we got to be the leaders, starting with myself, Joel, Tobias, and then, you got guys like Danny Green, Seth, who just came to the team. We're trying to build the right culture around here, and that's being competitive and moving the ball and playing as a team.
Well, since Ben Simmons brought up Tobias' name, let us, Lauren, segue to that. You spoke with Doc Rivers beforehand, asked him about Tobias' presence as a leader on this team. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, obviously last season we saw Tobias emerge as one of the best leaders probably in this league, but certainly one of the best in this Sixers locker room, really taking young guys under his wing. And this year we've seen that a lot from Dwight Howard as well. But I was curious to ask Doc how Tobias has been off the court. Now that we're celebrating his on-court accolades, how has he been off the court? And Doc said that he is a serious one and that every team needs a couple serious guys. He was joking a little bit, I think, but it's nice to hear that Tobias really keeps that professionalism in mind all the time, always setting a sterling example for the younger guys on his team. And this season is no different. He's just also doing a little extra out on the court, too.
The dunk he had over Bismack Biyombo in Saturday's game, that had to be one of the meanest plays in the gentlemanly career. Not this one, because that was a pretty mean dunk, too. But Tobias is a nice man. He's a gentle soul, a wise soul. Some might even call him, I think, Lauren, an old soul to a certain degree, despite him being relatively young. But the dunk on Bismack Biyombo was just absolutely ferocious. We see the box line he put up against Charlotte. He scored at least 20 points in 3 straight games. Saturday was the first time ever, there's that dunk, that he had 4 steals and 3 blocks in a game. So there is a meanness about Tobias's game that I really like. And I also think, despite him being a serious one, he's got like a little sarcastic, surly drip to his personality. It's like a little bit humorous, but when he engages with certain content, especially after some images of the dunk surfaced after the game on Saturday, you can see that kind of wry sense of humor that Tobias has.
Well, we say it all the time. Tobias is just a wonderful person on and off the court. He cares about the right things. He's always on the right side of history. But it is cool to see him bring a little bit of edge, a little bit of swagger to the court after that dunk, especially. You don't see Tobias celebrate on the court that often. That was a well-deserved celebration for Tobias Harris, showing a little bit of that edginess, a little bit of that extra aggression that this team needs and is really seeing success out of thanks to Tobias.
After Saturday's game, the 76ers big 127-112 win. Doc Rivers weighing in on his former player, now current player again, Tobias Harris.
It's been great. I mean, you can see it. I think he had one play he actually scored on it, which I almost didn't want him to, was the ISO he had late in the game, because that's where we don't run, really. We like his quick action play. He's making quicker decisions. He knows where guys are at when he goes. So he's been absolutely wonderful.
He has been wonderful and contributing, as we saw, particularly in that game Saturday, to a defense that has been at the top of the charts in the NBA right now. The leaders in defensive rating, points allowed per 100 possessions. They're second in points surrendered per game, first in the lowest field goal percentage allowed to the opposition, and also first in blocks per game. So these are all metrics, Lauren, that check out in a really nice way through almost now about 2 weeks of the season.
Absolutely. And we've talked about this on this show before. Doc Rivers, when he first got here, before they played a minute of basketball on this court at the center or at home at the complex, Doc Rivers said he wanted this to be a top 3 defense in this league. And sure enough, in the opening weeks of the season, they are not just a top 3 defense. They are the #1 defense in this league. So, Doc has got to be happy with it. But what's interesting to me is that the players think that they still have to unlock another level on the defensive end. So how does the best defensive team in the league get better? I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
One thing that I'll say, at least about Saturday's game, I'm sure the Sixers didn't want to be in a situation where Charlotte got back into things, had a little bit of momentum late. But I guess when you play with a large lead, kind of the way the Sixers did you have to go out and you have to prove that you can handle a situation like that. And I thought that when the game got on the line, we talked about Ben Simmons and the closing offensive plays, someone like a Tobias Harris and Ben as well. They were there to step up on the defensive end to make sure that things didn't get any closer than they ultimately did.
Absolutely. They talk about maintaining defensive intensity for 48 minutes. And we really got to see them put that to the test in the last game against Charlotte, because like you said, in the second half, they did try to stage a little comeback, these Charlotte Hornets. And the Sixers said, you know what, not in our house. We're not doing this. And it was really great to see them bring that intensity back up. Something we've talked about quite a bit, Celts, is the rigor of this season. It's been so congested. They're playing every other day, including back-to-back sometimes. So to see them be able to rally in the second half of the game while they're still getting their legs under them, I think has got to be a promising sign.
For the Sixers, so much of what they've been able to do defensively so far, yes, part of it is some schematic adjustments, getting back to a little bit of what the team did a few seasons ago. But also, when you have talents like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, that makes a huge difference. And Danny Green, a fine defensive player himself, talked about and praised the two All-Stars and what they brought to the defensive side of the court for the Sixers.
I think they have the potential, both of them, to be a defensive player of the year. With their size, ability, their reflexes, their footwork. Ben is very active, cat-like reflexes, can guard all positions. Joe can protect the paint like no other. It's just about communicating and doing it every night and being consistent with it. That's the mature part of it, the maturity level that they need to get to. But so with their ability, they can be monstrous for us defensively, and then it's easy for everybody else around them. But right now, so we're still figuring each other out, feeling each other out, getting Joe used to coming out and guarding. Guards are coming out on a pick and roll, being a little higher sometimes. Because he's capable, I just don't think he's as comfortable. But once we get him comfortable, we get everybody comfortable talking and moving around him, make the game easier for him and him making the game easier for us.
Listen, we know the schedule is going to get tougher for the 76ers in the immediate days ahead, but all things considered, if at this point, without things being even where the team feels it needs to be in terms of understanding the scheme, pretty darn good. You can't go any higher than number one.
And what a privilege to have two players that could be Defensive Player of the Year candidates on this team, and a great supporting cast of defenders as well. We just heard from Danny. We talked about Tobias's defense, 4 steals, 3 blocks in that last game. And then don't forget about youngsters like Matisse Thybulle, who obviously set the tone for their careers last season. I had a chance to catch up with Matisse earlier this morning to discuss his road back into the rotation after injury and how he thinks the defense is coming along.
Always great to see Matisse Thybulle. Matisse, I know it's still early, but as one of the key defenders on this team, how would you describe the defensive identity of the Sixers at this point?
For me, I compare it to last year and what's different this year, and it's just we're helping a lot more, helping each other, helping like weak side, helping on pick and rolls. It's a team defense, and I think the more we're bought in and the more we're able to read each other and play off of each other, the more success we're going to have, and the more havoc we're going to be able to wreak on that end. And it's exciting to see us growing, and for us, it's not where we want it to be yet. So to see the success we've had so far at the place right now, it's exciting for what the future has.
And then for you personally, having missed a good deal of training camp, how difficult was it to catch up to everybody else? And how do you feel that you're doing in terms of forcing yourself to grow really quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. Like I said, it's a completely different defense than we had last year. And trying to kind of get thrown into the fire towards the end of training camp, just trying to, with a lack of preseason games, just trying to get a feel for it. It's been a learning process. It's been tough, but I think I'm finally starting to get my footing and get some confidence out there, like looking like myself again.
Awesome. Matisse Thybulle, thank you so much. Good luck tonight.
I would agree, Lauren. I think Matisse has started to look like himself a little bit more. But if we're all just being honest, his activity on the defensive end, that's never anything that's in question. Very solid, and he's just been a steadily disruptive presence, much like he was last year in the time we've seen him on the floor this year.
Absolutely, and really good to see him find his footing, especially in that Orlando game. Obviously, the team right now without Furkan Korkmaz, also without Mike Scott, who are both dealing with injuries, opens up more minutes for a guy like Matisse, who was later to get into this rotation because of that injury. And in Orlando, he had that great first half on the offensive end, getting his first bucket, scoring 9 points, the and one, the threes. He looked really good there. And then in the second half, Doc Rivers called him phenomenal on defense. And that's the Matisse Thybulle we're used to seeing, the phenomenal defender. So expect to see more of that for sure, especially as he continues to get comfortable and get his legs under him with this new team.
So now that brings us to a very intriguing subplot to tonight's game. It is the second game of the first 2-game series of the season the Sixers are playing. First time ever in regular season history at the center. The Sixers playing the same opponent in back-to-back home games consecutively on the schedule. So here's the thing. Charlotte, I thought, hung around. Admirable job by them in the game on Saturday. Never really felt like, Lauren, in that one, that the Sixers were ever going to let them get back in it to the point where there could have been a real threat to the 76ers lead. So we say that. But Terry Rozier, he showed you just how dangerous he can be with 35 points. Gordon Hayward, very steady. And they also turned the Sixers over a lot in that game, way too much for, I think, Doc Rivers' liking. So there are things to have on your radar when you look ahead to this second and final game in this series.
That's for sure. And LaMelo Ball coming off the bench, obviously a new face in this league, but someone we're familiar with seeing. So it's just cool to see him get his NBA minutes underway. Doc Rivers before the game said that LaMelo looks really good. He's got a lot of skills. He was the bench leader for the Charlotte team on Saturday evening. So take a look at LaMelo tonight. Obviously got to contain Terry Rozier. We'll talk about that more in a little bit.
It is time, literally and figuratively, to get to our Tissot keys to the game. Do we have the countdown clock? 24 seconds. I'm going to go first tonight, Lauren. Here we go. 24 seconds.
Go for it.
On the clock. Tissot keys to the game. Trim down those turnovers. As to what we were just talking about, the 76ers committed 22 of them in the game on Saturday compared to 12 for Charlotte. That resulted in a 25-11 scoring edge for the Hornets in terms of points off turnovers and 23 points on the fast break for Charlotte. I don't care. The Sixers had 27 fast break points. For Charlotte, they created way too many turnovers. 76ers need to get that under control.
With 3 seconds to spare. Very well done, Sons.
I will say, inaccurate, because I was watching the clock and I quickly pivoted to the countdown clock, and I think I got a little bit of a delayed start. So I think if we're auditing this accurately, I went over by just a few seconds. An L for me.
All right, fair enough. No. Always wins. Only wins on 7-6 Live Countdown, presented by Tissot. Here's my key, my 24 seconds. I'll get started and say you got to contain the Charlotte guards. I wanted to say contain the Hornet wings, but really the guards had a better night. I just love a good pun. So really, we're looking at Terry Rozier, like you said, 35 points in that first game. Got to keep him under control. So look for defensive performances from guys like Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, the ones we always talk about. Gordon Hayward, also very good that night. So as long as you stick close with those guards, I think the Sixers are going to be in good shape. And I went over 24 seconds, but I'm very passionate about defense. It is what it is.
It sounded concise and to the point. If I had to make a gut guess without seeing a clock, I would have said it was around 24 seconds.
Thank you. But I think shot clock violation for me. It is what it is.
So the Sixers, they have the final game in their 2-game series against the Charlotte Hornets tonight. Then the schedule on paper gets notably stiffer. The Sixers have a back-to-back on Wednesday and Thursday against Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook and the Washington Wizards for a second time. Then they have the Brooklyn Nets, perhaps no Kevin Durant. That news breaking about an hour and a half ago, but still Kyrie Irving and some talented players for the Nets. Denver on Saturday. So at the end of this season, Lauren, when the finale rolls around in May, it's not going to matter who you played when in terms of when you stockpile your wins. Get them now. Give yourself as much breathing room and as much momentum as you can going into a section of the schedule that could present some challenges.
I'm with you, Celts. We talked about it before the game. Obviously, you want to see Brooklyn at full strength. You want to know that you can beat a team like that at full strength. So we obviously hope that Kevin Durant is doing okay, but it does seem like we will have that test. Sans Kevin Durant on Thursday, but next week, another big week for the Sixers. The Nuggets, a pair against the Miami Heat. The Atlanta Hawks also look really good. So there are some tests coming up on the horizon for this group. Would be great to see them get another easy dub tonight and head into those tougher games with some confidence.
Programming notes. I know Lauren and I talk to you a lot, but if you want to hear more of us, the 76ers Podcast Network, we dropped our latest mailbag Monday. A lot of great questions about the start the team's gotten off to this year and some of the bench players. So check that out wherever you get your pods. Lauren, I will let you get back to checking out what's taking place on the court prior to tonight's game. We're about an hour away. Thank you very much as always.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you Wednesday.
Shout out Coletti and Trevor on the sticks behind the scenes. Thank you guys. Talk to you Wednesday.